Hey, you're listening to the One More Cup podcast, hosted by me, Deanna Harner. With over 20 years in corporate America, I take you out of the boardroom and into the real coffee chats that have actually shaped my path. So come for the coffee, but stay for the conversation. I'm so glad to have you on One More Cup. Thanks for joining me. It's been a little while since we've talked on camera, but I'm really excited to kind of talk through our journey that we've had in the last 2 years since I've met you, worked with you, and then outside of work, just stay connected. And I'd like to always start these with how we met. And how I do it is I will describe to you what I remember about our first meeting. And then you will share with the One More Cup
Okay.
podcast listeners your perspective, which could be completely different than mine. So you were allowed
Okay.
to say whatever is real for you. So I remember looking for a job with a real large consulting firm. And a colleague that I had worked with at Microsoft was working with you at Avanade. And he was like, there's this guy, Kyle. He's like really influential. He knows a lot of people. Even if he can't get you into Avanade, like you should talk to him and maybe he knows people. Well, he said he knows people. It wasn't like a maybe. And I was like, yeah, sure. I'll talk to anyone, have this coffee chat with this guy,
Yeah.
Kyle. And so he set it up and we were supposed to meet. And I think you posted the position the day before our coffee chat. And it was either going to be a supply chain SME or a manufacturing SME. And and Sean was telling me that. I was like, that is a perfect job for me. And I was like, so cool because I'm comfortable with Sean, meet this guy, Kyle. I'm a little nervous, but it's okay. Sean's there. And then I don't know if it was you or him, but like somehow it became an interview with just the two of us at a coffee shop. And I'm like, oh crap. But I knew like we had a connection when you asked me this question. You said, I have one role and I need someone who knows manufacturing or someone who knows supply chain. Which should I hire? And I said, you should hire me because I have both. And I could just tell you were like, yes. So that's what I recall about our first coffee chat. What is your recollection?
And yeah, and this isn't another, I will say, will counter that. The flip side or the other side was, Sean, I had, I think mentioned to him directly, or maybe I did it on one of my team calls. And at the time, Sean reported to me and we were really struggling. I didn't say struggling, but like we wanted more traction in manufacturing and supply chain. And I felt like from our dynamics business, it was a little too
Mhm.
generic at times as we were going to market. And so I wanted to go in with a stronger industry standpoint. Um, I didn't have sellers that had necessarily that expertise. And so I mentioned it to Sean. He said, hey, I know somebody. Um, he didn't really position it initially as a hire. It was more of, you're own your own business in the space. There may be a partnership opportunity. Uh, she might just be a good person to know in your network. And so I'm always open to having those type of conversations. And so the coffee shop, at that time, my office was in this little town center area in Houston. And so I love this coffee shop. It's really good. And so we met there. Uh, I found out
I
later
live
you
there.
walked over there because
Yeah.
you lived in the permits next to our office. Um, but yeah, that was really how I started. And then yeah, to your point of the manufacturing versus supply chain, it was I wanted two roles. I didn't get completely what I wanted, but I got one, and I was trying to decide which one would make a bigger impact on the business in the short term and long term. And you had let me know that you
You're
were
like,
able to do
okay, I'll
both.
talk
So
to you more. And I think one of
yeah.
the things I haven't heard a lot of tech sales leaders say that you say, and that I think is so critical for success, is you really leaned into that business value, right? And one of the reasons is because when you were a salesperson, you actually had experience where you went to a business leader for a sales ask And all of a sudden, in like days or hours, you had the agreement, it was budget approved. It was none of what you typically go through with
Yeah.
IT because they're it's true, their budgets are more limited, they have more red tape, they have to go through RFP. And that experience really was like, no, we need to start talking to these business leaders, right? And I think that was part of the motivation and not just what you described, which was also part of it as someone who could talk widget to widget, right? And industry, but it was also like, this is where the money is internally in clients.
Yeah, I think every seller that's been doing this long enough goes through this aha moment. And I was just fortunate, it was pretty early in my career, and, it was actually there was 2 deals going on at the same time at the company. So I had one deal that was going through IT, and then I had this other deal that was with the SVP of sales and marketing who won the board, who was very high up, and it was so drastically different on how fast, the one with him moved compared to IT, and, like, how
I
much more
see. Yeah.
straightforward it was. I think, when you sell to IT a lot, and the reason for this is IT's normally not the budget holder, they're actually working with somebody else behind the scenes that you don't know about, and so I think when you do that a lot, you spend a lot of time analyzing, like, next steps and what they're gonna do or this or that, and I would just, call Steve up and be like, "Hey, what's going on? What are we doing?" That and I'll tell you a funny story. Uh, I sent him my sales rep, gave him the contract, and it had, I guess, some terms in it he didn't like or didn't agree with, and he literally wrote on it, "Kyle, cut the shit," and then get told them to give me the check back. And so in my office, the
Did you
guy
send
brings
that
this
to
thing to me, and
legal
he's,
or did you edit
"Here,
it?
this is from Steve." No, no, yeah, it was straight there. So, but anyway, we figured that out and did business and did a lot of business together. And he was, it was a very successful project and relationship. And yeah, it was just always this aha moment of like, wow, when you're talking to the person that's actually making the
And I
decision,
was
it
in
just
both
moves so much
roles
faster.
in industry. I was a business leader and supply chain and had a budget. And then I was in IT. And exactly what you said is true. When I was in supply chain at, Cornerstone and manufacturing, my budget was pretty much unlimited. If I needed it and I could justify it, I could get it. And all I had to do was find someone I liked, make sure they meet the qualifications, set them up, and get them going. And when I was in IT, it was more of the way that you described, right? Here's our list of approved vendors, go through the RFP, and all of that stuff. So it's an aha moment that served you well since you've stayed in the space. One of the
Yeah.
things I remember when I started was it was a huge challenge for me, going from an independent consultant and a corporate leader to this big Avanade, big firm, Accenture owned workplace. And you were very, even though I don't think patience is one of your top skills, you were very patient with me and, like, you let me be so real, and I remember conversations with you like, "Kyle, I don't know. Kyle, I'm not sure. Kyle, is this right?" And you were like, "Just let's keep going. We've got this." And it really meant a world to me because I think that helped me, like, get through kind of that it is a big change and it is a big struggle, right? And so you're like, "You've got this. Just be patient. Keep going." And all that, but I still to this day remember those
I
conversations.
mean, it's funny, like I always, have had success hiring entrepreneurial, like business owners that are kind of coming back to
Yeah,
corporate, so to speak. And I probably
right.
underestimate like what it takes to transition back into that or to do that. And so, yeah, there's probably a little of that. Like, and I think the entrepreneurial thing, like you knew how to sell, you knew the importance of that aspect of it. Um, but yeah, like I don't know, I'll let you drive the rest of that conversation. I can
It's
see
just
that
different. I
challenging.
mean, being an entrepreneur versus working for a large firm, right? Like, I can just make decisions and go, and there's a machine behind larger firms for a lot of reasons. There's more risk, brand recognition, and all that, and a lot of other things that we'll leave off the table, but it was your constant support every time I came to you and I was like, "I don't know if I can do this." You're like, "You've got this. Let's just keep going." And the other thing is, like, your advocacy for me, and
Yeah.
I know I've said this to you, but I don't know if we've had this direct conversation. Like, you made such a difference in my life when you advocated for me to have a voice. And, like, you went to the marketing team and you're like, "Make Deanna famous." No one has ever, like, elevated my voice and said, "She's got something to say. She can help our brand. You need to put people and time and resources behind her, which will help us." And, of course, it helped me personally as well. What made you lean into that? What was your thought when you were like, "Here's somebody that, can help us, and I see something in her."
Well, I mean, I think, I mean, the high level is when, like, where marketing has moved to is like this peer-to-peer marketing. Like, people want to read content, they want to consume content from people that are their peers or very close to that. They don't typically pay a lot of attention to corporate content anymore. And so I knew we needed our thought leaders as subject matter experts to be out there and to provide what they thought. And I had felt specifically about you, like you had enough unique experience and enough differentiated experience in supply chain that it made sense to invest in that and have marketing, we'll say, pour gasoline a little bit and help you create more content, get you some speaking gigs, do some paid media behind that. And that was, I mean, I'd like to tell you it was much bigger ambition than that, but like I'm a pretty like uh kind of straightforward there. Like, it was like, how do we attract more leads and bring them
Well, you're
in from a
business
marketing standpoint? And
focused,
this
but you
was,
also
to me,
are
one of,
intuitive enough to know what your customer wants and what brings them in. I don't think everybody in a
yeah.
sales role has that intuitiveness. It was like, put out more, orange, background, things. And it's like, okay, everyone's skipping over those, but you put somebody who looks like them, acts like them, talks like them, then they stop. It's really the social media phenomenon, right? Like when you're scrolling through Instagram or LinkedIn, you see something that looks different and you stop.
Yeah.
So, I think that's what I
Yeah.
saw. So,
Uh, first of all, inbound, like, I mean, I didn't make that up. Like, I got it from like the
you're
HubSpot guys
using
and
it,
stuff like years
makes
ago.
it
But
yours, makes it
um,
Kyle's. And the
yeah,
"Make Me Famous," did they say that? I don't know if they said that. It
no,
was
I can't
very
remember that. It was kind
catchy,
of
and
catchy,
I'm
wasn't
gonna
it?
use
I'm
it
pretty proud of
forever.
that.
Because anytime I said that to someone, they're like, "He said what?" And I was like, "Yeah." So, but I mean, you were very effective at getting your way, and maybe it
Well,
was those catchy phrases.
yeah, and I mean, the famous part comes from, like, I think I remember somebody saying, when I used to be a developer, you go to a developer conference and there'd be, a couple of people that get on stage and speak. Back, I'll date myself here, but it was
Yeah,
like Scott Guthrie, Scott Hanselman, some of these guys, and they were
right.
famous in that room. Now, I go to the
Yeah,
airport
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
nobody's stopping them at the
Not
airport,
sports famous.
but in their little niche circle, they are famous and very well known and very connected, and so on and so on. And so that was, the idea behind that is like, let's pick a very, narrow segment of the market and make
Yeah,
you famous
it's
in that
worked. I have
space.
2 big engagements coming up in September, so thank you. Appreciate it. So
Uh, You
well
you
well,
are you
thank
are
you.
done, for the record, by the way. That I pointed the right
It
direction, but
takes
you
a
you
team
did
though,
everything
Kyle,
else
but
from
thank you.
there.
Yes, I have leaned in since, so I appreciate that. So we don't have to dig into the leaving of Avanade, even though it tore my heart out. But you left, and you've done some entrepreneurial things in the distance, since leaving Avanade. And I believe you have some really cool news of some changes that are going to go happen next. So what's next for you, Kyle?
Yeah, you may be the first, I gotta get this. Yeah, so I mean, since September, I've been doing. sales consulting to a number of small service companies. It's been super fun and super rewarding and so forth. I've learned a lot. But my wife told me it was time to get a real
Wives.
job. Uh, and through, I mean, we may talk about networking later, but a common friend you and I know had connected me with the leader at this company, and wasn't quite sure if it was going to be a consulting engagement or a full time role. And the more we got to talk, the full time role made sense. So I'm going to go run revenue for a company called Burwood. But I actually worked for a company called Sickage that Burwood or Sickage acquired Burwood about a month ago. So I'm gonna go in and help them with that acquisition. And Burwood does similar things that you would expect where I would go. Cloud computing, customer experience, app dev, obviously data and AI as well. Quite a bit on the
Nice. So
infrastructure and networking side
congratulations,
too.
you're first. Thanks for sharing it with us. Um, so what
Yeah,
was your
thank you.
wife's reaction, when you got the paper in hand and it wasn't just, talk anymore, but it was actually happening? Did she plan a vacation? Is she going shopping? Lululemon for the daughter?
She hasn't voiced
What's her
that, but
cell
I'm
phone
sure
number?
there's some
Can
of
you
that.
text it to me after? Well,
Uh,
I'll help her out.
to actually give her credit, she was very supportive of the consulting as well. But yeah, it's just I wanted to sink my teeth into something a little more on a daily basis, and
Awesome.
yeah, this
Congratulations.
was
They're
it.
lucky
So
to have you. I know that entrepreneurship is fun,
thank you.
but it's not like a W-2. There's some good and bad of both, right? So hopefully you can find some ways to still do some of the sales consulting that you like, right? And be able to give back to some, sales leaders that are coming up, because I
Yeah,
think some of your insights, especially in the tech space, it's really hard to bridge the business to tech. And I think you have a lot of insights of things to share and how for sales leaders to bring out the best and I think you're a disruptor, right? And a disruptor in a good way, right? To bring in the change that's
yeah.
needed and not just do things the way that they've always been done, but like, hey, this has worked. Let's bring this in. So that's my perspective.
Well, it's right here now, but it used to be behind me. I used to have an
Yeah.
Apple sign that said "Think Different." I love that ad and love that slogan. So I try to come at
Yeah,
it
you
just a little
do.
bit
And I
different than
think
everybody
that's why
else.
you're successful. So I want to talk a little personal. I have to tell you that whenever you talk about your daughter or your wife, I'm like, wow, that is a cool, solid human being inside and outside of work. And I know, at least the way you describe it, I haven't spoken to them, so maybe that'll be the second podcast is where they come on and tell us Kyle's side their side of the story. But when you think of all the career and challenges and transformations and transitions you've done, as you're preparing your daughter, right, to get into a career, whether it's networking or what field to get into, what are you using from your
Yeah.
own history and experience to guide her? Or are you like, "Good luck. May the force be with you."
No, no, we could definitely. There's been a fair bit. I think the one that I hit on a lot is like this possibility that you can go start your own company, and it's not really because I wanted to. All right, like that's like a big thing for me. It's I think there's so much at school about you go to school, you go to college, you go get a job, you work at a job for a long time, and then you may retire. And so just countering that with like, well, no, you don't actually have to do that. And as someone that's tried a few startups off the side of a full-time job,
Really
it's
hard.
really, really hard. And so this is why like, two people in their parents' garages start all these startup companies is because they have time to dedicate to it and they don't have like the financial obligations
You gotta look a lot
required
of
here
those
required.
stories,
So
Kyle, and see their
um
parents' money. It's like, is
Some of
there
that,
seed
yeah.
money or is this really just they're in their garage? But anyway, go ahead.
Well, I wouldn't be against a little, putting in a little
Yeah,
seed
well, that's
money if she
cool.
has the right idea. Uh, but yeah, so I think that's one. I'll tell you a funny story. So I really early on, like, sort of brainwashed her that she should go to Stanford. So like I bought nah, so and and it wasn't the reason isn't I don't
Yeah.
really care if she goes to Stanford or not, but I know
Mhm.
it's a like really hard school to get into. And so if she into that school, then there's
Yeah.
most everything else is a possibility. And so I would like buy little onesies and she had a Stanford poster in her room. And then when she was, I think it was 8, we went to San Francisco and we drove down to Palo Alto and toured the campus and all that kind of stuff. And so for like up until very recently, if you asked her where she was going to go to college, like it was Stanford. And then I actually told her recently what I did. I was kind of like leveling set with her, like, hey, I've been doing this because I really wanted you to aspire to like go to a top school, and then we can go from there. And so now
Well,
she
I
wants to go to
mean,
Oxford.
again, not a bad school, so dad still win on that one. Let her think that
Yeah,
she blew your mind, but
we'll see.
ultimately you still are setting her up for really good success, right?
Hopefully, yeah,
So, let's
yeah.
talk a little bit about your transitions into different companies and sales. Have you always been in sales, or was there a moment that you transitioned? Yeah.
No, I was always, but I do want to. You reminded me now. I want to go back and tell another story about my daughter. So the other thing I believe, and this will transition to your next topic anyway, is
Yeah.
everybody should know how to sell. Like sales is about persuasion. You don't have to actually ever be in like um, a bag
Right.
carrying
Mhm.
quota, sales job, traditional sales job.
You're in
But like
sales.
if you go start your own company and need to go raise
Mhm.
money, you're in sales, right? And so not being able to do that is like a big hindrance. And so one time she came over for school and it was one of those like school fundraisers where you go sell pots and pans and all this stuff out of this catalog, and then you win like these cheap prizes, right? But the kids love them and all that, right? And so she comes home and she's already worked on my wife,
Oh,
who's going to do
okay.
this for her now.
He's delegated.
Like she got to call people, right? She's already, yeah, right. And I said, no, 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 that's not what we're gonna do. And so I sat down and
Is this
co-wrote a
before
script
AI?
with. No, wait, yeah, way before AI. This was 5 years. And I co-wrote a script for her, and the last line of the script
Okay.
was, "Do I have your commitment?" And had her like first she started with like grandma, grandpa, that kind of stuff. Before it was over, she was randomly
Yeah.
going through my
That is
phone and just
awesome. I
calling
love
people.
your daughter. Good job.
Okay, so you asked me about sales. So no, I started out as a computer programmer. When I was in 7th grade, it was my first like programming class, and we made this little ball bounce
Like,
across the
this is
screen, and
cool.
I was hooked.
Yeah.
And I thought that is what I want to. So from 7th grade all the way to started
Okay.
college, I was going to be a game developer, and then got into college and saw the math requirements for science versus the math requirements for
Yep.
MIS, and I'm like,
Mhm.
huh. And then I also found out that like business programmers made a
Okay.
lot more money than game developers, and so that solidified the switch. So, but yeah, I did that. Did a couple of dot coms out of school. Actually, I had my own web development company in college, and I did a few dot coms, and then ended up at this company called Infusion that I started as a developer and architect, and then over time transitioned to tech sales and then
How is
eventually
that
sales.
transition from developer to sales?
Um,
Because that does seem very different. I
well,
know we said a lot of jobs are sales, but I don't think those 2 are
like literally the first sales book I wrote was Sales for Dummies. Like I went to not read. I went to Barnes and Noble. So I moved. The story is like I moved from New York to Houston, um, with Infusion to run a big project we had and then be like the tech sales for the sales guy. And when the sales guy picked me up from the airport, he let me know that he was quitting and moving back to Tennessee to start a company with his dad. And so I'm like, "Hey guys, who's gonna be the sales guy?" And they're
You got
like,
this.
You can do it." Yeah, yeah. So that was my transition to sales. I think the hardest thing, the biggest difference, and yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of differences, but one that was striking to me is when you're a developer and writing software, you kind of have like four
Okay.
tasks for the whole week. Now they're long, and I worked a long hours sometimes, but it's like build this screen that does this, right? And you usually have a PM that's kind of managing some of that for you, and there's all these systems already set up with like ADO and everything that has all that stuff in there for you. You don't have to remember anything. So I
Oh,
really had
wow.
no
Okay.
task management at all. And then I switched to sales, and now I got to do 100 tasks that are like 5 minutes long and keep track of them and what's done, what's not done, who owes me follow ups. And that was like a striking like shift for me.
And I saw what you did when we worked together at Avanade. Like, you had a pretty slick process to, like, keep track of all of your notes and all the things you were doing, and I
Uh,
think even with, the venture into AI, right? We'll talk about your podcast in a minute, but, like, how did that, like, start for you in sales, and how did it transition to now
yeah,
using AI? And if you were in sales today starting, what are the things that you were like, "Do these 3
yeah,
things, if nothing else?" So how did it transition, and what are the top 3 things you recommend to new
yeah.
salespeople?
So the transition or the kind of like I knew I had a problem, but I didn't know really what the solution was. Uh, I was I was at this little coffee shop in Houston.
I was like, "Are we gonna give a shout
Walden
out?"
Pond
Okay,
was
Walden
actually the name of
Pond.
it, in the Heights.
Oh, well, that doesn't
And
help.
well, they're closed now.
I
So,
can't
but
get
it
sponsorship,
was
Kyle,
actually
from someone who's not here.
yeah.
Okay,
Well,
Starbucks,
it
there you
was
go, see,
Starbucks. I was at
Starbucks. We'll put
Starbucks
that
now.
brand.
But then it was an old converted yeah, it was an old converted house. And so on the weekends or on Fridays, sometimes to just change things up, I would drive there. It was like 20 minutes or whatever. And so I'm there one day and I overhear this guy
Okay.
coaching somebody else on sales. And so afterward, I'm like, hey, I kind of need some of that. What do you do? And he's like, oh, I'm like a coach. Like I help people with their businesses. I help people with sales. And I'm like, I want to hire you. And so I still worked with this guy
Wow.
today. And he recommended
Yeah,
the book Getting Things
okay.
Done by David Allen. And it just clicked with me. I was like, oh, this is the answer to all my problems. Like, I mean, what David Allen's really, big on is if it's in your head, get it out of your head and get it written down. And I was like driving myself crazy with like worrying about what I had forgotten to do. And so it was like a lifeboat for me. And so I adopted that. Almost everything I do now is still based on that. All the tools change and get a little more, a little fancier. Um, voice to text was not necessarily a thing back then. It is, very much now. And so, um, I guess the AI component, comes in. I mean, the big thing for me, I don't take
Yeah,
notes in meetings anymore at all, right? And I think everybody, I use a tool called Circleback, and the only reason is because I'm a freelancer. I usually join whatever the client asks me to join, and so I'm toggling between Google,
Zoom, yeah.
Teams
Mhm.
and Zoom all day long, and so it keeps it all in one place. And I just invite the Circleback agent to the call, and then it takes notes. And I think it does a little better job of summaries than most, but then I take those actions that it captured and I move those into a little task management system
I can see you still
that I
doing that
use.
is after this new job, like sales 101, here's Kyle's top tools. I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe you talk about that on the morning so tell me about how that's going. I know you launched a couple months ago with Will, who we worked with. How is that going? And, like, what has it been like since the start to now? And do you have a different perspective on podcasting than you did before you started?
Um, the only different perspective I guess I have is like it takes a lot for anything to go viral. Like you see those things and you're like, oh, that it just happens,
Doesn't,
and
no.
it doesn't. Um, I did at Avanade
You did?
do an
Yeah.
internal podcast about self, have different people. So some of that part was familiar, but the production quality that we're doing now way better than that. And the Will and I, who's my co-host, would on our commutes just get on the phone like 7 o'clock in the morning and
Hmm,
just go back and forth about AI. And it was probably 2 years ago. So there was a lot new, a lot of things coming, and trying to figure out how does this apply to our work and our day to day. Um and so one day Will's like, we should hit record. And I'm like, yeah, we should. And we kind of put it off a little bit. And then finally, I knew Cami because she had actually been on the Avanade Sales
oh,
podcast
I didn't
before as
know
an
that's how
outside
you guys
guest.
met.
And
Okay,
I called her up.
cool. Cool, the background story.
uh, yeah, her startup was a client of Avanade's. And so I called her up. I was like, hey, I got this thing. I got this idea. What do you think? And she's like, let's give it a shot. And so we kind of went into it. I was like, hey, let's do 3 episodes and see what it's like. And yeah, it's been super fun. And I would like it to go viral a little bit and take off, but also just doing it, I'm learning a lot, and we're starting to do outside guests,
Okay,
and so
so One
it's
More
been
Cup
super fun.
podcast listeners, go to his podcast and let's make it viral. That's what we're gonna do, Kyle. Well, we're gonna work on Starbucks because it is one more cup, so, I mean, I think that makes sense here as well.
Yeah,
So I want to finish off by
yeah,
saying thank you, obviously, to be on here and all your advocacy for me inside and outside of work. I will always appreciate that and be here for you as well as you transition and change in life. And I have a daughter as well. So if there's ever any lessons learned of having a 21-year-old that I can help you with, let me know. I like to go back and, we've talked about like how we met, how your careers transition, what you're doing now, what you're doing next. I always like to go back to like if you talk to the 25, 23-year-old Kyle, right? And you think of all of the
yeah.
complexities of life and challenges that you've gone through and had, if you could go back and tell the younger Kyle or somebody who's starting, right, in a sales role or podcast, whatever you want to do, what would you tell them? What lesson learned would you go back and say, do this and do this well? Use AI? No, I'm
Uh,
just kidding.
Back when I was 25, invest in Google.
So invest in, something
So
today that can be something tomorrow.
yeah, well, I don't buy single
Okay.
stocks, so I wouldn't tell my 25-year-old self to do it either. But I think so. A couple of things. One, and I kind of intuitively got this right, but if I was going back, I would do it even better, which is
Oh
like
gosh.
relationships matter. And like I remember going to different career things at school, and people would tell me that, and I kind of roll my eyes, and I'm like, well, I don't even know what that means. Make sure you network. And it is it's very, very true. Like the relationships you have and that you build in your 20s and 30s are what's going to make
Yeah.
a difference in your career in your 40s and 50s. Like hands down, it's going to open up more opportunity, whether or not you're in sales or not. If you're
Yeah.
in sales, it's a definite must. Uh, I mean, I've got clients that I'm going to go sell to now in like the third iteration, but I've
Absolutely.
known for 20 years. I think the other one at 25 would it is this is kind of a funny thing, especially in sales, but don't
Okay.
worry about the money. Like you will make so much more money in your 40s and 50s compared to 20s and 30s. Like, don't chase that. Chase
Uh,
the networking,
yeah.
chase the learning, because that's where you're gonna make more money. Like if you have two jobs and there's like a $10,000 difference, that doesn't make any difference at all,
Exactly. It's
especially
like a
after taxes.
coffee.
That's like nothing. Uh, yeah, it's like coffee. I I bet I might spend that at Starbucks. Uh, but if that one other, the lower paying job, you learn more, get more position of authority, and you're empowered more. You're going to get in a circle with very
Yeah.
up and coming and influential people. That's the thing. And so I didn't do that at 25. I inadvertently fell into infusion. Before that, I was kind of like chasing the money, figuring out, hey, how much money can I make as a programmer? And I really didn't put a lot of thought into like, how do I put myself in a position to be really, in proximity to these up and coming people that I can learn from and
And they can bring me
eventually
up
work
and I
with,
can
work
bring
for.
them with me, right? So I think that's huge. I identified with so much of that because in hotel and restaurant management, they were like, it's all about networking. I again knew nothing what that meant. Like even though they describe it. It was a bad word.
That's a bad one. Like we need to come up with a better, like, cause it makes you think of those like cheesy meetups where you got your like name
At least
tag
I
with
would
marker
remember
and
your
you
name
drinking
if
like
you had
stale
it on your
coffee and
shirt, but yeah.
it looks like yeah, it looks like an AA meeting or something
But,
like,
that's
but
why I call them coffee chats though, Kyle,
it,
because I
it,
call them that because to me, that makes it less intimidating. If I have met you and I
yeah,
just wanna have a
not,
networking session, right?
yeah,
Because maybe I want you to be my boss, I want some input from you, I want you to be my client, or I just think you're a cool person, I wanna talk. Like, who doesn't have 30 minutes? Most
no,
people will be okay to go to a coffee bar, right? And it's like and just to go and find a way to do it authentically you. So if coffee's not your thing, like find your thing, but that's how I started doing it and not making it feel like a chore. And it has taken my network from like 0 to 1,000, right? And it's simply because I found a way to
yeah,
show up authentically, that was me, and it was just with the common interest of having a good cup of coffee, and hopefully, if it goes well, you and I will continue to connect about something else afterwards and have one more cup, but it's really just about having a way that makes it feel
solid.
comfortable for you so you can do it on repeat.
I love that. Like you put your own spin on it, right? So I recently got hired uh, by a founder and a coach, a new
Yeah,
salesperson he had that was fairly young. And so the two things I told him, the first one was, when you go to one of these events, I want you to come back and
mm.
have met one person. And the founder was on the call. He's like, "What? No, 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 no. I'm going to meet like 20." I'm like, I would rather you come away with
Yep,
one meaningful connection that they actually are going to
yep,
remember your name and pick up your phone call than passing out 20 business cards. We'll do now a bump right there. And that's how you do it. And that's exactly what you're doing there with the cup of coffee is it's not these transactional things. It's like, hey, let's take 30 minutes and get to know each other. Uh the other thing I told him was start a
really?
Christmas card list.
Christmas card list. Do you do that?
Mhm.
I
No,
was
and I
about
wish I
to
would
get
have. And
offended. Hold
now
on, I just have to tell you
now
before you answer. I was like, "Where the hell is my Christmas card, Kyle?" But okay, I'm
I have my wife and I have said we're gonna do this every year
yeah,
for maybe a decade now. But now the bar for me, like you just said, like I have like the bar for me
yeah,
would be really high, like a lot of effort because I know a lot of people and people would be offended if I didn't send a Christmas card. So I would do it all. But like I could imagine if I would have had if I'd have done it over the last like 15 years and I would have
yeah.
1,000, 2,000 mailing
That's
addresses
your
on this
sales funnel.
list. And yeah, maybe I slip a little something in
Yeah,
there about what I'm selling. I don't know. Maybe I give them a little QR
of
code
course
to
you
listen to
would.
the morning prompt this
On
this
repeat if
Christmas.
you're sleeping.
Um, but yeah, and then you could take that and like do other things off of it. But yeah, I always regretted I didn't
Well, and I
start
think the
that
way I
early.
have learned to do
So
that is if you are someone who has shown up for me and my network, then you're on my repeat list.
yeah,
Like I even do this with you, right? Every couple of months, I'm like, hey, Kyle, how is it? Hey, Kyle, how is it?
yeah,
Because then it keeps our relationship going. And it's not just, Kyle, I need a job. Kyle, I need advice, right? It's like I'm checking in with you consistently because you've shown up for me and I want to show up for you. And that's how I do it. And so if you're on my short list, I don't have the 1,000 because not
Perfect.
all 1,000 of them show up for me, right? But the 20 or so who
Yeah.
do, I always every couple of months, I'm like, "Hey, just checking in. How are you?" But I think it's kind of similar.
Have
No.
you heard of Dex? DEX? Alright, you're gonna like it. Uh, so it's like
Okay.
CRM, but for
Can
actual
we call it
networking.
coffee chatting?
And so like most
Okay. Okay.
you could call it that. Maybe they'll change it for you. But or you could probably point Claude at it and say, "Hey, rebuild this for me," and call it copy chatting. Um, but like most CRMs are
Right.
all about opportunity
Yeah.
management for the company and not enough about the contacts. And so Dex doesn't do opportunities or deals at all. It's only contacts. And so you have a contact record that you can put everything in, and you have a little field that you say, how frequent do you want to stay in touch with them?
It
And then
reminds
when
you.
you're overdue,
That's
Dex
brilliant.
reminds you.
That way my mind doesn't forget you
So
for
I've got
6 months. And then I'm like, "Oh, shoot, Kyle."
like, and I don't know if I should admit this, but like, so I put everybody in that, even like, even my parents. Oh,
Okay, well,
they're
that's
in the
good.
weekly one, like they're in the very frequent one. But I have it in there just in case I go longer than I need to and get busy. I'm reminded like, hey, you need to call mom. But I don't know, check it out. It's a pretty useful tool, and it's like
I
19 bucks a
love
month
that,
or
and I'm
something
gonna use
ridiculously
Claude to
cheap.
make it a coffee chatter.
Well, I do have an MCP server, so you can take Claude and say, hey, update this
Okay.
record, update this contact,
So I think our
and you don't even
second
have to go
coffee
into the
chat
tool,
is gonna be
which
that
is
plus your family on the podcast so we can hear what they have to say about Kyle. He's signing off now. Kyle, with that, thank you.
my my wife is most famously
I
described
heard
as a
that, but
handful.
that's why she's with you. So there is a reason the two of you have been together and stayed together. So I look
All
forward to meeting her one day. Thank you, Kyle, for being on One More Cup
right.
podcast and being part of my tribe. I appreciate your time. Thanks for listening to One More Cup. If this conversation sparks something for you, don't ignore it because the people who move forward in their careers aren't waiting. They're having real conversations, honest ones, the kind that help you think differently, see differently, and move forward. So go start one, and I'll meet you back here for another cup. I'll see you next time.